Alright, so we're going to go through a level design. I've got a level design sort of sketched out over some grid lines. I've aligned them roughly to the grid lines because that just keeps things easier and more consistent. I've also got a folder full of source images here that I just found these on Google. So there's nothing wrong with just sourcing images from Google. You can also take your own photos or draw your own textures and things. These are going to be basically the textures for the map. I'm going to just sort of get it presentable. The first thing I'm going to do is make some textures out of these things. Right now, if I was to overlay this on something, it sort of changes the way it looks a lot. It's like, I mean, it goes from this grey to straight into totally different tones. So what I'm going to do to try to sort of normalize it is run a high pass on it, and that sort of knocks out the big changes in the image. It just gets you the details, basically. It isolates the smaller changes. So if I was to overlay that, it just sort of, it keeps what's underneath, but it just sort of adds in the details of that old image. So high pass is a really handy tool that you should like remember and use. I'm going to also levels edit this one. I'm going to try and keep it sort of even-sided, just so that I can get some more intensity out of it. And then what I'm going to do is control-click this guy, Control-C to copy, just go new, and just whatever that says. Then I'm going to define a pattern out of it. And I'm going to say stone floor. Okay, so now I've got that as a texture. I'm going to do the same thing with the other ones, more or less. This guy, run a high pass on it. You'll notice if you mess with this slider that you can knock out more and more of the bigger sort of details. You can pretty much see between the difference between these images is what it's actually doing. So I'm just going to high pass that guy. Let's edit it a bit. You could do this with contrast as well, whatever works for you. Copy it, paste it. For some reason, you can't define a pattern in the just on a layer. You have to actually. I'm going to leave this. This is a vellum image of some vellum, some old paper that I'm going to use right at the end. What was I saying there? You can't create a pattern out of something that's just sitting in the image as a layer. For whatever reason, it just has to be the whole image. That's just how Photoshop works. I'm going to go create pattern. Floor 2, I guess. And then this guy. High pass that. Remember to have the right layer selected when you want to run a filter on it. I want to keep some of the darken lights in that. I'm going to use contrast this time. Crank him up a bit. New image, just paste that in and define pattern, say sand. Okay, so now we've got those as patterns. What I'm going to do is I'm going to back this off a bit so that I can only just sort of see it and create a new layer. I'm going to start with a sort of light greyish colour and just do like one of these walls. Just paint over it with some. I'm going to go with grey just because that's not too good actually. I'm going to just do straight line-ish looking thing for now. And I'll just call this, I'll call this walls. Because that's what it's going to be. I'm going to go into the effect and I'm going to go a pattern overlay and just straight away I'll go down to I'll use the stone floor that we made. Scale that down a whole bunch. And set it to overlay because that's what we intended it for. That looks cool at that scale, I guess. So now, the reason I only did one wall before I started doing this is because I just wanted to see how it looked, and then I can just paint with that. Pretty much, it's like painting with a photo. I'm not happy with that, just having that on its own though. I'm gonna put a stroke on it as well. Just nothing too extreme. Maybe a little bit of a drop shadow. Not so intense, maybe. I might do a tiny bit of bevel and emboss as well on a really low setting. So all these are just really easy ways to kind of add a little bit of depth and interest to line work or otherwise boring stuff. So now I'm just going to trace over all this stuff. Pretty simple. And the other thing you can do is when you've got this sort of thing set up with a nice sort of layer style, you can start doing things like just painting freeform as well. Like if I just go like this to sort of show some loose bricks in behind that wall there on the sort of outside, that works really nicely. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to do like make that a little bit crunchy and not particularly, you know, that kind of thing. So I'm just going to keep going with this. Just make it a little bit sort of freeform, I guess. It doesn't have to be completely straight. And over here I've got like a little secret passage sort of thing, so I guess I'll just make that like really quite freeform. Not too fussy about how that's going to look. You can also use these layer styles to do like tiled things like that, like little clumps of whatever. So I'm just going to skip forward and to when I've traced over all of this, just so that it doesn't get too boring. I'll be back in a sec. So I'm done with my line work. I just basically traced over it with a few different wall thicknesses and added some little columns and things here and there just for theming, I guess. And I just put in a blank color over the top of the grid just so that it's easier to see. Now I'm going to go to the walls layer, make a selection outside of them, pick this part as well with shift click, invert the selection with Control Shift I. Underneath the walls I'm going to make a new layer and pick a different color to set it to. So now we've got a footprint of the building. I'll put a pattern on that, I guess. We've got one of these textures loaded up. I'll try this one first. I'll see how it goes. Set it to overlay. Scroll it down a whole bunch. Not so intense, maybe. Yeah, I'm not too upset about that. How that looks, that's pretty cool. I'm just going to save that. So now I want to try and get some shadows happening, cast from the walls inside there. So what I'm going to do is Control click this walls layer, copy it, paste it. Then I'm going to set the transparency lock on and make the whole thing completely black. Okay, so now what I want to do is I can make a shadow by just repeatedly sort of moving this down and copying it again and again and again. I could do that by hand, or I could make an action for it, which is in Window Actions. We can automate repetitive tasks in here. So I'm going to make a folder for my actions, right? Create a new action there with that little new page button. Call it shadow, I guess. Once you create it, it's recording straight away. Okay, so I'm going to Control click this. And you can see it's adding things to the action. I'm going to copy it, paste it, and then nudge it across 2, down 2, across another 2 maybe. And then I'm going to merge that guy down, okay? And then I'm going to hit stop on the macro recorder. So that's an action recorded. Go back up to the top again. And if I hit play on this, it should just repeat that action again and again and again, okay? So just keep hitting it until you've got shadows going as long as you want, I suppose. Just keep going for a while, just to show that you can have a bit of fun with it. So it's just copying and pasting and flattening them. Now I'm getting a little bit of, just because of all the copying and pasting, this is going a little bit crusty there, so I'm just going to put a blur on it, a little slight Gaussian blur, I guess. Oh, sorry, the transparency lock's still on, I'll turn that off. Gaussian blur, maybe to about that. It's cool. Anyway, I'm going to drag it below the walls layer, and now you can see it's actually going outside the building as well, which I don't actually want. I'm going to right click this and go create clipping mask, yeah, and now it'll only project down onto the layer below, which is the footprint layer, so it's all inside the building, right? Now if we just crank that down a little bit, we got some kind of cool shadows happening, I suppose. So now I might just get the background a little bit presentable. So I'm going to go back into my sources, little folder thingy, and grab this this vellum. Alright, I'm going to just dump that in the background. I'll scale it up a little bit, just so it fits the whole thingy. I'm not totally cool with the color and stuff, so I'm gonna turn this down a little bit, go a bit on saturation like that. Then I'm gonna grab, I also had some other thing in here, like some stains. Yeah, there we go. a couple of those, chuck them on top. Gonna go on a high pass on these, just so that it's overlayable, if that makes sense. That's actually really subtle. We'll get the contrast happening. So scale that up. Get some crazy coloration going on. It's actually a little bit too saturated as well. So saturation way down. I'm going to use the clone stamp on it as well and make sure it's set to current layer and not all layers or layer and below, and just sort of make it a little bit more continuous so it's not so there's not just a cut off there. That's fine by me, to be honest, for the background, at least for now. And because of how it looks at the moment, you'll always end up doing stuff like this. I'm just going to go into the effects here and maybe crank the stroke opacity up a little bit. My drop shadow opacity could probably be a little bit higher too, which is fine. I also want to go on top of these paper layers and just grab like one of these sort of mid-tone colors and just box it over the top there and turn it down quite low, just to ease off the texture a little bit so it's not too busy. Now I want some sort of soft shadows on the inside of these, on the inside of the walls as well. So I'm going to grab that layer again, copy it, paste it, turn the transparency lock on, make it black. I'm going to put it underneath the shadow layer so that it's part of the clipping mask, and then we're going to just do a drop shadow on it, change the size to be a bit higher than it is, and that's like a really subtle difference, but you can see it just adds a little bit of depth to it, makes them feel like rooms. Another thing I'm going to do is below that shadow layer, so this is all still in the clipping mask, I'm just going to grab a different color, like maybe something like that. I'm just going to pick a few rooms, say this one, just box over them. What else? Maybe that one too. Just to give them a different color sort of thing. This guy here maybe. Just the front. I'll also do some stuff in the background, so underneath everything else, make a new layer. I'm going to grab that color and then just darken a little bit. So then I'll get like a nice kind of softish brush, like one of these ones, this 11 one, scale it up a bunch, set it to maybe 50-ish. I'll just start painting like that, and then what I'm going to do is, as you can see, I can just go right over the edges and it's not going to affect anything on the floor. Then I'm going to just overlay one of the patterns we had, this dirt sort of pattern, I guess. Set that guy to overlay, turn it down a little bit, scale it down slightly. So yeah, we can just go, and it just sort of gives a feeling of there being substance there. Maybe it's underground or whatever, like a dungeon. I'm going to turn this down a little bit more and just box over what I've already got there. Yeah, that's a little bit better, I think. So yeah, you can just do that pretty quickly and roughly. It's not a big deal. Anyway, I'll just pause it real quick and finish that off. So yeah, I've just done that real quick just to give it some outside detail. I might, you could change the saturation and stuff if you want, make it a little bit more saturated. And then on top of that, of course, you can do an adjustment layer right up the top with the levels and just sort of see what you can get out of it. Often if you just sort of crank this a little bit, it looks a bit better. So I'm getting kind of happy with that result. What else can we do? We'll do some little bits of furniture. I'll just put them on top of these clipping mask layers, I guess. I'll just grab a woody color, a Woody Allen color. Let's say that's a table. There's another table in here. give some little stools in these little prison cell thingies. Yeah, sound cool. And what else? I'll put some doors in here too of a slightly different color. It helps to, if you want like a sort of natural sort of looking thing, you can, actually I'm going to chuck these above the walls just so that they sit over the top like that. It helps to use different tones of colors for wooden things or natural looking wood, because you know, wood doesn't actually just come in one color sort of thing. I'm going to just put a quick bevel and emboss on them. Pick the direction wisely, I suppose. That's changed the direction of a few things, but you know, no big deal. Pattern overlay, we do have a wood texture in here that we made earlier on. Yeah, that's the one. So it's overlay, of course. Might do a quick stroke on them. And a drop shadow, I guess, just real quick sort of stuff. The other thing you can do is, if you want it to look a little bit more sort of hand-drawn, just go ahead and just make these a little bit less perfect by just erasing parts of them. You know, stuff like that. You know, you can do another door or whatever once you've got that sort of style figured out. It's a secret passage, so let's block it up. You know what I mean? We'll have an open door there. It's kind of too easy, really, from that point. Stuff like storage, like like barrels and stuff for this kind of level is pretty cool. Get some darker colors. Oh man, I keep picking colors again. Didn't mean to do that. With the circle tool, if you just hold Alt, it will actually, you know, it'll start from the center. The other thing you can do is on top of the floor layer, just do some sort of freeform stuff. So if you grab like a red, let's say that this is the kitchen over here, and I want to just like make it look like there's been blood on the floor and stuff. I can I can't right now for some reason. It's probably because it's got the clipping mask. No, that's not what I wanted to do at all. Yeah, there we go. Put it above the clipping mask stuff. Turn the opacity down a little bit. You can just sort of stain things like that. Get a bit more going in here as well. Maybe in there, just for color variation, it can kind of help. Anyway, that's a map pretty much. I'm just going to add some labels to it, and the rest you can figure out yourself. So I'm just going to pick like a sort of lightish color. When you want to do this sort of old, antiquated sort of looking stuff, don't go full white or full black on anything. Just go like sort of close. You don't want it to be quite too. So I'm going to pick a handwritten thing. Oh, I've already got one selected from when I did a quick run through of this, so I'll just use that. Main room, right? I'll use capitals just to be correct. MR. The room should be capitalized, sure. Actually, I want that dark, not completely black. And then just so that it's readable, I'm just going to do an outer glow on it. Make it a bit bigger than that. Yeah? Everyone cool with that? Right now it's looking like the walls are a little bit too bright compared to everything else. This is all important stuff that you will notice at the end when you've got everything sort of sorted largely. I'm going to add a bit of saturation to them as well, just so they're not so monotone. A bit less light as well. Yeah, that's cool. I'm happy with that. So there's some text saying main room. Outer glow needs to probably be a little bit more crazy, not quite so light either there. Anyway, you can go into your styles thing and paint bucket that when you're on that text layer. It'll ask you to name it, say text 1. Okay, so then every time you go to add more text, say this is the kitchen, right? Kitchen. And then you can just click that in that styles palette and it'll fill it in for you exactly how it was before. You can do this with any layer, you know. Cell, that's a prison cell. You know how it is being in prison. This can be the entrance. And you can add symbols and whatever on top of this, but this is just to give you some ideas for how to actually render things. Add some little notes and stuff on the outside so it has that look of a drawing or whatever. The other thing you can do if you're feeling like it, or if you want to use this for a board game or D&D or whatever, is just paste the grid back on top. I'll invert that, just do a quick contrast edit to make it just black and white again. And then I'm going to multiply it and put it down in with these clipping masks so that it fits just over the floor. Turn the opacity down a bunch. Maybe copy and paste it, and then blur it a bit. That's okay. And then just go multiply on that. Turn it way down, so it blurs those lines a little bit. So yeah, we got some kind of cool stuff happening there. You could use that for a board game or whatever. And yeah, that's hopefully enough to get you on the right track with your level design maps. I'll probably do something else in a different theme at some point, but who knows when that'll happen. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll put the image up for you to have a look at with the PSD, and talk to you next time. Later.